Welcome back. It's time for the Round Table, and planes, trains, and automobiles seem to be much of the talk in business news this week. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan's plane trip to Japan may have left some skid marks on plans for the Purple Line, while the governor got excited about his fast trip on a Tokyo train. Meantime, anger over car congestion and transportation taxes could unseat Virginia's Speaker of the House. This while the Commonwealth is making an even bigger play for D.C. sports teams. This week, we deliberately downsized the Round Table so we could spend extra time talking to the man with his finger on the pulse of the hot topics in our region, Robert McCartney, senior regional correspondent for the Washington Post. Robert, thanks so much for joining us. We always like having you here, and there are some hot topics that people are getting hot under the collar about. Let's start with the Purple Line. You've got Larry Hogan in Tokyo, all excited about what are called maglevs, magnetic levitation trains, that he wants to bring to the D.C.-Baltimore corridor. Does that leave the Purple Line in the dust? He has never seemed very excited about the Purple Line.
He's certainly worried about the cost of the Purple Line, which is why I'm kind of surprised to see him get so excited, almost gee whiz, about this magnetic levitation train.
They are not cheap. They cost like $20 billion, and Japan has said, hey, we'll pay for half of that if you'll take our high-speed trains, but $10 billion.
$10 billion for a train from Washington to Baltimore, it would be incredibly fast. I mean, it would completely transform the region in the sense you could commute easily from Baltimore to downtown D.C. and vice versa.
I'm all for it, but
if he's worried
we've got problems here.
Well, if he's worried about $2.5 billion for the Purple Line and almost $3 billion for the Red Line in Baltimore, it's hard to understand how he'd want to spend $10 billion for one train when the project is very far in the future, and whereas, you know, as opposed to the Purple Line, which is like right here, right now, he's got to make a decision in the next few weeks.
So what do you think behind it? I think there's a couple of things. One is I think it goes back to the power base of Maryland, and the governor's office is not in this region. They're not in that congestion. It is more of a focus on what would be good for Baltimore and not so much what would be good for the the Washington suburbs. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's how it often seems with these issues. And the second one is the high-speed rail was one that was brought to him, but he seems to now be owning it. It seems to be his project. Are those the two driving forces?
That could be. I mean, I would not get too far ahead of the curve here on this. I mean, I think he was, trying to be nice to his hosts in Japan.
I don't know. I think he's ready. I think he wants a maglev.
Well, where's he going to find $10 billion?
It seems like he's ready to ask the federal government for some of it. We'll see.
He might, but the federal government hasn't exactly been generous about handing out money these days.
Well, let's talk about who has been generous. The D.C. City Council was pretty generous to D.C. United to rebuild their stadium here in the city, and they returned the love by dating Terry McAuliffe in Virginia, now that Loudoun County is saying, hey, we can make you a better deal there. What's going on with this, and should the business community care? Well,
I think the business community should certainly care, especially anybody who's interested in promoting the redevelopment of Southwest D.C. This D.C. United Stadium that's supposed to go into Southwest, or was supposed to go into Southwest, that's a big part of the redevelopment of the Anacostia waterfront, and they were very
taking
close.
Clients to sports events has always been a big part of D.C. business.
Also, but Terry McAuliffe is just insatiable. I mean, he wants to pull the Redskins over to Northern Virginia, and now he wants to pull D.C. United over as well.
Listen, can you blame him? I would too if I was the governor. Are we in the district doing a good enough job? I play all sides. I want people to be in Virginia and Maryland and the district, but is the district doing enough to keep their teams?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance that the D.C. United is basically playing footsie with Terry McAuliffe in order to try to put pressure on the D.C. government to give them a better deal.
Well, and I worry about that because Mayor Bowser started pushing back on, she wanted some protection against cost overruns, and that's when it seemed to really heat up with the game of footsies in Virginia. So I don't think any of the jurisdictions should be willing to offer too much for something that could be immensely profitable for the teams.
Well, that's not the way McAuliffe sees it. McAuliffe's willing to offer an awful lot in order to have a feather in his cap. I mean, he would love to be able, he only gets one term in Virginia, so if he could bring one or two sports teams to Northern Virginia during his tenure, he'd be bragging about that for decades.
And he's doing this as he continues to court the Redskins. Okay, so let's talk about the Speaker of the House in Virginia, William Howe, 72 years old. was one of those leaders that would have been untouchable a few years ago. He's got a Tea Party challenger who's really taking him on, a former protege, 42-year-old mom who says he made a big mistake voting for the McDonald's transportation package that included some tax increases, and she's got some high-power support behind her.
She's got some national support. Grover Norquist, of course, the anti-tax crusader and guru, if you will, for the Republican Party, and some other conservative stalwarts are supporting Susan Stimson, and they feel as though Howell and Bob McDonnell, for that matter, both betrayed Republican principles by supporting that tax increase for roads and transit. And they're, you know, it wasn't, Howell didn't just vote for that package. I mean, he made that package happen. Yeah, I mean,
but he
and
says,
McDonnell.
hey, we needed it in our region. Now, the problem is you've got hot lanes that are apparently backing up in Fredericksburg, and they're not too happy about that. But your paper has done a very good job detailing all the ways that he is trying to make sure he does not pull an Eric Cantor and take these voters for granted. He's got 30,000 get out the vote, knocking door-to-door campaign. You go to his website and it ticks up. There's a ticker that shows you all the different ways he's saved taxpayers money.
Well, he's pulling out all the stops to not suffer the same fate as Eric Cantor, who, of course, lost a year ago to a Tea Party challenger.
Dave Bratt, but Cantor took those voters for granted, I think.
Totally
he was here,
took it for granted,
as you all reported, he was having breakfast with lobbyists in Washington the morning that he should have been out sealing the deal.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got the pop quiz coming up next. You haven't been here since we instituted that, so stay tuned.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you'll find out when we come back after the break. It's his first time, so I'm going to make it a double pop quiz. Will Speaker Howell get reelected, and will the Purple Line get funded by Governor Hogan?
Howell will get reelected, and based on what Hogan has said, the Purple Line is just too expensive, and he won't fund it.
We'll have to bring you back to see if you pass the quiz. Thanks, Robert McCartney, for joining us on Washington Business Report.